Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of BGT Special as part of the Express podcast. We didn't record on day one of Gabba because, well, basically there was nothing to speak about other than just rain. And here we are, ready to talk about day two, which was an extended day. And basically it extended India's pain on this tour. To talk about what happened on day two in Brisbane, we have Mihir joining us today as our co-host. This is me, Vinayakk, and we'll have Sriram Veera's inputs from Brisbane later on in the show, where he'll talk about what he saw, especially in terms of Rohit Sharma's mood swings, so to speak, and what Steve Smith did. Before we get to that, let's bring in Mihir. First of all, Mihir, your thoughts on the day?
I mean, it was still raining. I think the difference was it was raining runs. Almost 300 runs on the day, right? Or 400, sorry, not 300. Well, close to 400 runs on the day. I can't remember the last time an Indian bowling attack looked so flat. This reminds me of those tours to Australia and England when Dhoni was the captain, especially the one in England. I think was it the Oval Test where Dhoni himself then finally took the ball and he tried bowling just to kind of give a message to the bowlers that they aren't doing their jobs well. I mean, the sad part is that Rohit looks completely clueless to me right now. I mean, it's just an unfortunate phase, I think, of his captaincy. India have seen good times and bad both under Rohit's captaincy, and this is one of those bad phases that is enduring. But man, he does look extremely clueless right now. I don't know if Australia are looking better than what they actually are, but certainly India's bowling, which until last year we thought that, oh wow, we've got a great pace battery, and the whole excitement to see those players do perform in Australia on the pitches that might be suitable for them. To see each one of them struggle is, it's just very disappointing. You wake up at 5:30 in the morning and then to see cricket like that from an India point of view, that must be painful, Vinayakk.
Yeah, especially with a 30 minutes earlier kickoff of 5:20 now because we lost so much time due to rain, as if 5:50 was not hard enough. Yeah, Rohit's captaincy, I think that was probably, at least going by Twitter or X. I don't know if anyone calls it X in an actual conversation. But yeah, going by the conversations on social media, Rohit Sharma's captaincy seems to be the big talking point, honestly. And we've been discussing this on and off. Now he's lost 4 in a row as a captain. Maybe rain can save India in this one. I don't know if the Indian batting is going to save themselves. Because honestly, so before we get to the bad part, I think the first session deserves a little bit of discussion because India were really unlucky, all said and done, right?
Yeah.
Bumrah started so well, 2 early wickets, both the openers gone. And I think the number of times the ball beat the bat, I think it has to be said India were quite unlucky in the first session.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, again, you mentioned Bumrah, and we go back to something that we had discussed during the last match. How many times do you expect Bumrah to bail India out? There will be a day when he might not fire and India would struggle. And unfortunately, that day was today. But, first session, like you said, little things here and there. And who knows, the day would have panned out very differently, especially with Akashdeep. Him constantly beating Steven Smith outside the off and testing him for LBWs. Like Steve Smith also had good words for Akashdeep. At the end of the day, he credited the way he bowled and everything. So that was an interesting little battle going on over there. I wasn't too really impressed from whatever I saw with Siraj through the day as it progressed. And Jadeja didn't really have... you look at team selections and the choices that we've been making, and a lot of things then in hindsight can be and should be questioned legitimately. Yesterday there was this joke going around that the curators and everyone there in Australia in a way conned Team India into bowling first on a pitch that looked really good back for batting in the first innings. To bat in the second and fourth, it'll be tricky over here because like we saw in the first session, there is something in it for the bowlers. It's just that are you good enough to exploit it? And as the day progressed, it didn't look like that. Something that even, Vinayakk, if we want to look at the overall day, what happened, what Morny Morkel said at the end about India's bowling in between 50 to 80 overs, that was quite sad. Soft ball being punished everywhere. It wasn't really a pleasant sight to watch if you're an India fan today.
Yeah, I think what Morkel said was that they had plans and they just didn't execute them. I actually wonder about that. Obviously he's going to say that they had plans because he's the one making the plans. He's not going to come out and say, hey, no, so sorry, between 50 to 80, I didn't give them any plans. That was my bad. Put it on me. Obviously, he's not going to say that. So, he said they had plans and we couldn't execute it. A lot of the discussion was around the field setups, which baffled many fans and experts. And the fact that at that point, the field was so spread out, not enough catchers. To an extent, Travis Head made that happen with his typical attacking intent to go after the bowlers. You also have to wonder, now the World Test Championship final, the Perth second innings, Adelaide, and now Brisbane. If over 4 tests you're not able to figure out how to get out a batter, it's probably not a question of just not executing your plans. The plans have to be questioned in the first place. To be very honest, today
the World Cup too.
The World Cup too, right? The one chance that India did create and Rohit Sharma put down fittingly, because the whole Rohit Sharma Travis Head connection continues in not a good way for Indian cricket. Travis Head was again sensational. Nothing to take away from the way he's batting at the moment. There were a few deliveries that he actually cut, which were full-length deliveries. I don't know how you cut a full-length delivery from a pacer. One of the things that Matthew Hayden mentioned was, I think India lacked airspeed, serious airspeed today. Even Bumrah's speed was in the lower 130s. You can't blame him. He still picked up 5 wickets. He was the only one who looked threatening. But Siraj didn't have the airspeed. Akashdeep moved the ball around but didn't have the airspeed. Nitish Reddy obviously doesn't have the airspeed, but he did take 1 wicket. But once the ball got soft without the airspeed, there was just not enough deliveries that troubled Travis Head and Steve Smith, who both played brilliantly. It was a complete repeat of what happened at the World Test Championship final. I think today they came together at 75 for 3 and it was 76 for 3 when they came together to bat in the World Test Championship final and put on 280 odd. Today they put on 240 odd. So, proper deja vu for the Indian bowlers. Yeah, so Rohit Sharma's captaincy, I think there was a lot of criticism about the fields being too passive, the plans being not clear, especially to Travis Head, maybe a little bit all over the place. It's difficult to judge, right? Maybe just Travis Head is too good and we are not. Maybe it's just a quality thing. It's not about the plans. Maybe that's the issue. Veera will speak a little bit later, but he has written already about how Rohit looked angry, frustrated at various points during the day. Apparently, he wasn't too pleased with the lines that Jadeja was bowling. And he mentioned one thing, the lead up to the test, it was Ashwin and Washington doing most of the bowling and the batting in the nets and not Jadeja. So what made them pick Jadeja for this test is another question that we don't know the answer to. So just too many questions at the moment and not enough answer. The only answer that India do seem to have at the moment is Bumrah, and I don't know how much you're going to use him till he, I don't want to say this, but till he runs himself to the ground, right? Once again, he was sensational today. Apart from the brief period where Head attacked him, I think he was just, once again, India's best.
True. If we were to kind of also focus on the other side, Travis Head, of course, has been a constant thorn in the Indian side. But what an innings by Steve Smith. I saw a couple of videos that was posted by a former colleague and now the presenter and television anchor in Australia, Bharat Sundaresan, and he kind of followed Steve Smith at the nets a couple of days ago in the indoor nets in Brisbane, and it mentioned how Smith had got his exaggerated flourish back. And we often ask athletes, right? We often ask sports persons what that one thing which, if it happens, it makes them feel good on a particular day. It makes them feel that it's their day. I guess with Steve Smith, it's that flourish, the exaggerated flourish that he has with his shot. And it was so much fun to watch him play. I think his first century in 25-26 innings? Apart from the first few moments, the first half an hour or so that he was on in the middle, he looked so comfortable out there. Again, it might be a case of whether Steve Smith finding his mojo or Indian bowlers being that bad. But if you're still scoring a century against an Indian side, it's a great thing. And it was really heartwarming to see Steve Smith get his century, break the drought. And in a very typical way, right? That glance through the fine leg, which he plays so well. So I was kind of pleasantly happy to watch him run back into form. And Vinayakk, it feels like one of those phases again in cricket where all the players who are out of form are suddenly finding their form by playing against India. So, that used to be a running joke if you're an Indian cricket fan growing up in the 90s. That's what used to happen with literally every team that India played. And it currently just feels like that.
Yeah, and in a way, we also brought back Travis Head to form, quote unquote, at Gabba after 3 consecutive golden ducks. He looked like he was never going to get out today. Right? So, yeah, the Travis headache continues for India. I think that could well be the headline for the podcast as well. Yeah, I think we've discussed what we need to discuss, I guess. Honestly, I think the weather update is not great for the next 3 days, but Australia don't seem too perturbed about that. Even Steve Smith said that we're not looking at that too much. It's just a matter of getting the runs on board. I have a feeling they'll just try and score as many as they can tomorrow and make sure that they don't have to bat again, and weather permitting, try and bowl out India over 2 days. And honestly, given how India kept missing the outside edge today, if that doesn't happen for the Australian bowlers, it could be a very difficult outing for the Indian batters once more. There was one funny moment that I want to close this before we go to Veera. During one of the spells that Bumrah was bowling in the morning, where he looked unbeatable, I think there was an over he bowled to Labuschagne where I think almost all six, if I'm not wrong, all 6 balls beat him outside the off stump, or maybe 5 of those. And then he goes to the umpire as he collects the ball and he says, we've got to have wider bats. That kind of, I'm sure Akashdeep agrees with it at the end of the day. Yeah, Bumrah was sensational. Akashdeep was good without luck, but in the end, it was completely Australia's day after a good start for India. So we'll move over to Sriram Veera from Brisbane, who'll share his thoughts from the ground. And with that, we'll close out this episode. Maybe better things to talk about tomorrow other than rain or Australian dominance. Let's see. Thanks for listening again. This is Vinayakk and Mihir signing off.
What a beautifully crazy day of Test match cricket. It started off with the Indians being dominant with an absolutely peach of a spell by Jasprit Bumrah. Just the way he bowled, the lines, length, the way he worked out Labuschagne and Sweeney was wonderful to watch. And alongside him was this a fascinating spell from Akashdeep, coming of age, as they say. Steve Smith himself was so impressed that he would say later that he's a very, very good bowler. The first time really batting. They got significant movement and way he bowled. And the way he bowled is basically how he tried to work him out. It was not just coming and running and hitting the deck, which nothing bad about it. So he just didn't do that. He tried. There's a plan visible. He's trying to trap Smith LBW with the occasional in-dippers. He's trying to get the edge with the ball that's straight and outside off stump. And he mixed both of them beautifully well. And hence Steve Smith was beaten. Hence he was on the shuffle and all that. Luck wasn't with him and he couldn't get a wicket, which must have been shattering to him at one point. I remember after beating Steve Smith for the second consecutive time, he just stood on his haunches and just on his knees. And then KL ran from short mid-wicket. Siraj ran from covers and sort of patted him and encouraged him. So they realized how good this spell was. But bigger picture, Rohit Sharma has lost to think. He had a pretty sort of a day of myriad emotions, running from angst, from smile initially, and then slowly turning to angst, anger even, and disappointment, and everything was mixed. Once because Siraj got a slight issue on his left hamstring thigh. He was off the field for a while. When he came back, he was never the same. So that was an issue as well. He couldn't do it. Then Nitish Kumar ready to expect him on this pitch. More of a swing bowler. It was not a surprise he didn't go well. And then the big thing, Ravindra Jadeja's performance brings to the question the selection. He was clearly rusty. It was not his kind of a pitch. It was more of a pitch for R. Ashwin with his overspin and bounce. Even a Sundar to an extent. But the pitch was not helping Jadeja. But that is not the criticism against him. Thing is that he would give tight and control to Rohit, which didn't happen with his lines and length. He was down leg side or too short on the offside. And you allowed both of them. They were like really toying with him. They could do what you wanted. So it's because he's not been practicing for the last 2-3 days, as we have reported. Washington has bowled more. Ashwin has bowled more. He was, he bowled very less. So suddenly to prop him up, I don't know when they made the decision that they should play him. They clearly didn't plan through. They clearly didn't think through, or they just thought based on his experience, he could just stand up and come and deliver. But he's been not had any game time, not much practice time for a while now. And so it was, not a surprise that it, burnt and crashed. So that left Rohit was pinning his hopes on Bumrah and Akash. But, how many overs, how much can you grind them? So that is the issue. So he tried giving it, but he had to give to Jadeja. He had to give the ball to Nitish. And the overs like 50, 60, especially 60 to 80, they just leaked runs. Head played beautifully. It was great to see Steve Smith hit 100 after 1.5 years. And he made a special tweak for this, opened up his stance a bit. And just for 3 days, he's been practicing that. And then to come and see him use that, he took a while for it to get used to the technique. Hence, he was beaten a bit, but he stuck to his it. He trusted it. And then to score this 100, and you saw it in his emotional celebration. It was all around a great day for Australia. India would hope that, I think, at this stage that it does, weather forecast holds up and it rains for the next 2 days. So we have to wait and see how that goes.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.